Hello, Chattanooga. You're listening to All New News Radio and newsradio.com here on 92.7 FM. Thank you for joining me today, making me just a small part of your day. You know that I appreciate you. A lot to get into so far as baseball is concerned. We've got the end of the Major League Baseball trade deadline, and a lot of teams made a lot of massive moves, you know, because you're trying to get into the playoffs. There's a big playoff push at this point in the season, or you've basically waved the white flag on trying to get into the playoffs, and you're basically building for the future. Those are the two camps that you wind up in as you get closer to the trade deadline. And the Braves have made some moves that I think makes it pretty obvious that they believe that they're a playoff team and they're a contender. And you know what? They're absolutely right. They are a team that I don't think they expected to be here. I don't think that the Braves expected to be in a position where they could win the division, which they probably will. I don't think that they thought that they'd be in a position where they could make a potential playoff run, which they definitely could. They've got the talent on the roster. This is supposed to be a gigantic rebuild. This was supposed to take time. And it's way ahead of schedule. The Braves are doing something right now that, you know, I think that it's potentially incredibly, it lays a blueprint for teams, I think, that this is how you build in baseball, right? Like we saw the Astros do this. The Astros built, they got out and raised their prospects through their own system, built up over time. And I think that that is the right way to do this. But the Braves, I think, are showing that the blueprint can be even better. That if you take the time to put into your system, build up your farm system, build up your young pitchers, scout so that you end up being able to draft guys like Ronald Acuna and Ozzie Albies. You've got the right mixture of young guys and veterans. If you do things of that nature, you could find yourself in a situation where you're way ahead of schedule. And yeah, and now, I mean, the Braves feel pretty comfortable trading some of their young prospects. They traded four pitchers, or four young players, including a couple of pitchers. I mean, they have really put themselves in a position to really win right away. And they sent some of their players to the Reds, rather, for Adam Duvall from the Reds. And I thought that's such a great move for them. Adam Duvall gives them power in the lineup. Not that the Braves couldn't hit. Like Freddie Freeman is having as great a year as anyone could have expected out of him. Nick Markakis, who is 1,000 years old, is having certainly a much better year than anyone expected out of him. Like Nick Markakis is a billion, and he's playing great. Freddie Freeman playing fantastically, was an all-star. Ozzie Albies playing well. Ronald Acuna, like they have guys who can hit, but Adam Duvall gives you that cleanup hitter, that classic cleanup hitter. Right? He can knock the cover off the ball. This is the Braves pushing all in. And by the way, I mean, Adam Duvall is 29 years old. He's not hitting well. And I think that this is where you end up with a little bit of risk with Duvall. He's hitting 205, but he's got 15 homers so far this season despite that. And also, I think it's really interesting with Duvall because a lot of teams see this happen. You have guys move around from team to team, and there's something about being traded at the trade deadline and being in a new environment, being in a winning environment, because I think we can all safely say this, the Cincinnati Reds are not contenders. The Reds are terrible. There's something about moving to a winning environment that makes you play better, that lifts your play. And I'm really excited for the Braves, right? I'm a Nats fan. There's a rivalry there. But I've lived here long enough that I understand how important the Braves are. And I really, really want them to do well, especially because the Braves are one of those teams to me. Baseball's better when they're good. When the Dodgers are good, the Cardinals are good, the Yankees, Red Sox, and the Braves are good. Those are teams that I grew up watching
I'm used to them being good. Baseball's better when they're good. They're traditional powers. Not that anybody minds when the Kansas City Royals pop up and they're great. Not that anybody minds from time to time, inexplicably, the Marlins are able to put together great seasons. Not that anybody minds, but I just prefer it this way. So I'm rooting for the Braves and this rebuild and this blueprint, because it's not that you have to be the Yankees who just unload money like it's not worth anything. It's not like you have to be the Dodgers. Again, another rich organization. They've got a lot of cash. If you don't have the money, you can still build a squad that can contend. And despite even your most optimistic timeline, the Braves have exceeded the best of all possible versions of what this is. So yeah, you take a risk on a guy like Adam Duvall at the trade deadline. You're winning the division. I don't think that the Phillies are dead. I don't think that the Nationals are dead yet. So I think you had to make a move if you're the Braves to keep some distance between you and them. And you did that. You did exactly what you had to do at the trade deadline. The Nationals decide to stand pat. I think that that's a smart decision for them, because the only player that the Nationals had that anybody wanted was Bryce Harper. And I don't think you trade Bryce Harper and risk not ever getting him back again. I think you have to keep him and try to hang on to him when he, as a free agent, this upcoming offseason. I think you have to do that. The right decision for the Braves was to stand pat. That's a squad that is capable of winning. They've won the division 3 years in a row. Not going to happen this year, but they've made the playoffs. There's no reason to believe this squad can't do it. Obviously, the Nationals have the big obvious problem, which is that their bullpen stinks. But outside of that, they're a really good squad that can win. I don't think you try and shake up anything if you're the Nationals. Maybe wait until next year and evaluate and see what you've got if you don't make the playoffs. But try to keep everything intact so you can try and bring Bryce Harper back. You found the youngin', Juan Soto. He's done a great job. That kid is 19 years old. There's a whole youth movement going on here in Major League Baseball. Juan Soto's 19. Ronald Acuna is Ronald Acuna 18 or 19 years old? You know, all these young guys showing everybody else how it's done. You're listening to All New Nuga Radio and NugaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. I want to shift gears on over to the NFL, because the NFL is in an interesting place. We've been talking about this rule change, this helmet-to-helmet rule change that would make it illegal for players to initiate contact of any kind with their helmet, any position. And it's unclear how these rules will be enforced. The league says it'll be fine. I know that it won't be fine. These rules are vague. The league has gone so far to talk to the Eagles and to talk to the Redskins and some of the NFC East teams. Those squads are confused as to the nature of the enforcement of these rules. And it's starting to affect the draft. Sam Darnold just signed with the Jets, meaning that the only player from this past NFL draft is Roquan Smith, the young linebacker from the University of Georgia, currently trying to be a Chicago Bear. And his agent is worried about the possible money lost with the enforcement of this helmet-to-helmet rule. That the money isn't guaranteed if he ends up in a position where he's suspended, in a position where he's ejected from a game as a result of this rule, which is vague and I think going to be very difficult to enforce. I think that his agent is probably onto something. And it actually leaves me to wonder, why aren't all the other defensive players' agents onto this as well? This seems to be a really big deal. You don't want to lose money over something that you couldn't help doing. The rules don't seem to be very well constructed. They don't seem to be well worded. And I think that they put players in a dangerous position where you have to choose between breaking the rule and your own safety. Again, players lower their head a lot of times to protect themselves. It's a human instinct to get as low and as small as you possibly can in a situation where you're about to end up in a collision. You don't want a rule that could potentially penalize players for natural actions that they're making. Yes, you want the players to be safe. Yes, you want a reduction in hits, a reduction in helmet-to-helmet collisions. I do too. I don't want anybody developing CTE, but at the same time, I do think we have to reach a certain point where we have to go, this is about as safe as you can make the game of football, and not necessarily put guys in a bad spot where they stand to lose money or where they stand to endanger themselves further because they don't know the nature in which rules get enforced. And I've talked to a lot of football players in my life, and almost all of them will tell you the worst thing you can do out on a football field and the most dangerous thing that you can do out on a football field is hesitate. This rule makes it so that players hesitate. That could be potentially more dangerous. And we'll see that. And when you combine it with the fact that a lot of these referees are very young, these are not the referees that have been there forever and ever and ever. These refs are young. They are learning the game like sort of like we're all learning the game. These rule changes are coming quick and fast. And you're putting a lot of pressure on these guys. I have a lot of respect for NFL officials and referees in general. It's hard to do that job. You're asking people to be eagle-eyed in a situation where guys are moving faster, they're stronger, they hit harder than anybody has ever hit, ever. And you're asking them to do this in a situation where you're changing the rules. And this, again, this helmet-to-helmet rule, the NFL is acting like this is a no-brainer. If everybody knows what's going on, if everybody is aware of the way that this is structured, then it's fine. But what ends up happening is you're putting players in a position where they don't know what the rules are, the fans don't know what the rules are, and if the officials aren't clear on this either, when the NFL season starts, this is going to be a mess. I promise. It's absolutely going to be a catastrophe. And Roquan Smith holding out and not signing with the Bears, this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is just the canary in the coal mine. There's something wrong with these rules. And I can't tell you what's wrong until we see it, right? Like, this is where I'm actually more interested to watch the preseason than I've been in years. I haven't been excited for an NFL preseason since I was 7. Preseason doesn't matter. The football doesn't count. You're glad that it's back, but then after a while, you're just like, okay, wake me up when the season actually starts. I'm really interested in preseason now because I want to know how the refs are going to enforce this rule. Helmet-to-helmet collisions happen all over the field constantly. That's the nature of football. Offensive linemen and defensive linemen knock heads. Running backs lower their helmets. Defensive players lower their helmets. Who is going to be breaking the rules here? Do you just enforce the rules where they apply? Is there a spirit of this rule to even enforce? It's hard to tell. There's no clear dividing line at all. And that's a problem. That's a real problem. And I wonder how the league is going to address this. This issue with Roquan Smith is interesting. I think the Bears should just go ahead and pay him because, first off, the money that they stand to lose if Roquan Smith, this does happen to him, is minimal. He's just trying to protect himself. This is different from the Sam Darnold thing or even Joey Bosa a year ago with the offset language to where if for whatever reason Sam Darnold is released, he's able to be paid by the Jets and whatever team he goes to. It's unlikely that the Jets would release him, so the offset language seems dumb to be hung up on. This does not seem dumb to be hung up on in any particular kind of way. This is a player and his agent who have looked at these rules and have seen what a lot of us are seeing, which is that it's not clear. There's no good way to go about enforcing this rule. And until we see the officials do this, and by the way, the officials, these are the same officials. And again, I'm not putting down the officials. I'm putting down the way the rule is written, who couldn't determine what was and wasn't a catch for like the last 7 years of NFL football. The rules were so vague, they couldn't determine what was a catch. And now we're going to take that and apply it to an action that's even more unclear. Whether or not a player deliberately initiated helmet-to-helmet contact. I mean, this happens a million times a game. I know we're trying to make football safer, but where's the line? Where's the line? Because you're making the game of football impossible to understand. You're listening to all new Nuga Radio, NugaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. I have always loved food. I am deep down inside a very, very fat person. And one of my favorite places to go to, Olive Branch Mediterranean Deli. And they've got some fantastic specials going on throughout the week. Wednesday, they've got chicken marsala, sausage, peppers and onions, green lemon chicken, and for the vegans out there, lentil stew. And of course, my favorite, the meatballs and spaghetti. That's Olive Branch Mediterranean Deli. Make sure to check out those specials this week. Tomorrow, it's a fantastic special going on. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there for the meatballs and spaghetti because I am a fat kid on the inside. So I just want to talk about LeBron James a little bit because one of the things that has always perplexed me is the group of people who do not like LeBron James. I'm not saying you have to think he's the greatest. I'm not saying you have to think that the beginning and the end of basketball is LeBron James. What I am saying is, how could you hate LeBron James? Does that not seem bizarre? LeBron James has never been in trouble with the law. LeBron James has been fundamentally a good person throughout his entire life and certainly through his career. The spotlight's been on him since he's been in high school, and he's never had a trip up or a slip up. Right? LeBron James came into the league, and when he came into the NBA, he couldn't legally drink and wasn't allowed in bars. Like LeBron's lived a very clean life, and LeBron's done something very, very cool in the city of Cleveland. He opened up a school. It's called the I Promise School, and it's one of the better, more public shows of being a magnanimous person that I've seen from an athlete in sports, like really giving back. Because I hear people say this all the time. Why don't athletes give back? And the thing is, they do. It doesn't always lead to high levels of publicity. Obviously, controversy sells. Opening a school for kids isn't a controversial act. Like, we know in a lot of ways that how the school system is failing and has failed a lot of people, especially my age. And the fact that someone is going, okay, well, kids need a better school. I'm going to open one up and I'm going to give them everything. LeBron James is almost a billionaire. And he's got the money to do this. And for him, it was a no-brainer. Right. And I think that there's something to this. So you have to look at a person and go, what's more important? I know that we like to argue about the legacy. Is LeBron better than Jordan? Is LeBron better than, just take a name and put it up against LeBron. It seems like we've done that. We put LeBron against Jordan. We put LeBron against Magic, against Kareem. But when it comes to what really counts, do we actually focus on that stuff? And shouldn't we? We actually should focus highly on those things. And I really respect the hell out of LeBron. Like, I'm a big LeBron fan. I just like to root and watch greatness. Like, root on greatness, watch greatness. And I don't understand why other people are not capable of doing this. I can watch greatness and appreciate it without it being the greatest of all time. I can watch LeBron and appreciate him without him having to be Michael, without him having to be Bill Russell. I can appreciate it. And whoever is going to be great after LeBron, I can appreciate that guy without that guy having to be LeBron. But one of the things that you can't deny, whether you like LeBron or not, that all that has to be is as a player, because you can't dislike LeBron as a person. You can't dislike LeBron James as a human being. As a human being, he is giving back at an unprecedented rate, and athletes already give back. A lot of them. But he's giving back at an unprecedented level, and I think that's something that's highly commendable and very respectable. You're listening to All New Nuga Radio, NugaRadio.com, here on 92.7 FM. Thank you for joining me today, making it just a small part of your day. You know that I appreciate you.
Traffic, news, and information. Nuga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Assessor of Property Marty Haynes denied accusations that he gave special tax break favors to GOP candidate Esther Helton. Jonathan Mason, Helton's GOP opponent, says it's not an accusation, it's just a fact. Haynes telling the press he will take the matter up with the comptroller's office. A mobile home fire has been ruled an arson. Investigators with the Insurance and Safety Fire Commission in Georgia say it happened at an empty mobile home on Airport Road in Tryon. A reward of up to $10,000 is offered for info that leads to an arrest and conviction of the arsonist. And a hit-and-run victim has been ID'd as 62-year-old Donald Rackley. The CPD says a passing driver spotted Mr. Rackley's body on the side of the road just before 8 a.m. Monday on Norcross Road. The CPD Traffic Division believes he was hit by a driver who then sped away. Val St. John for Nuga Radio, News Talk 92.7, Action News now.
Chattanooga Morning News with Russ and Val. Weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. on Nuga Radio, 92.7 FM.
Chattanooga weather.
And lots of clouds with another round of scattered showers and storms rolling through your nighttime hours. Overnight lows closer to 70. For the midweek, continued unsettled through Thursday with cloudy skies. Areas of showers and thunderstorms likely as well, with highs each day closer to 80. Tired of the pressures and hassles of car shopping? Come see what more people are making the short drive to Jackson Chevrolet Buick GMC in Lafayette, or online at jacksongm.com. That's Jackson Chevy Buick GMC in Lafayette. And I'm Soar G12, Chief Meteorologist Master 4.
Nuga Radio 92.7.
I got my business up and running, and it's already expanding. I got lucky. Lucky because I found Signal Voice and Data. Signal Voice and Data can incorporate all of my business information sharing and communications seamlessly, keep my costs down, and let me work more productively with endless connectivity no matter where I might be. That's called working smart, not hard. Go to signalvoicetn.com and bring the future of communication to your business today. signalvoicetn.com.
Hey, dude, check this out. Have you ever seen one so big?
Whoa, look at the size of that.
Look at this little itty-bitty one.
Wow, that's really small.
They have them big, small, and everything in between. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives at the knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. We're talking about over 40 brands of knives, including Benchmade, WR Case & Sons, Booker, and all the Frost Cutlery brands. Now, Sam, you've been to the cutlery shop. Is it amazing?
Spectacular. The knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. They have knives, swords, kitchen knives, ammo, and reloading supplies, plus survival gear.
It's the knife shop at Frost Cutlery. They're open 7 days a week. Hey, girls, you're going to love this. We're going to the knife shop. Hey, let's not tell them they have ammo and loading supplies. The knife shop at Frost Cutlery opens 7 days a week. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives. You're going to love the knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. The knife shop.
And tell them David Toulis sent you.
Do you hear that? That, my friend, is not what you're thinking. That is the new 2018 Indian Chieftain Dark Horse. Yeah, Indian. Indian motorcycle is more than a bike. It's an experience, an American icon. And Indian Motorcycle of Chattanooga is the only place you'll find their new 2018 line. Are you ready to ride? Join the club. Go to Indian Motorcycle of Chattanooga. Just look for the sign, 153 and Amnicola. Indian Motorcycle, the true American original.
You want more business. You want to increase your bottom line. You want to spend less on advertising, imaging your business, and general expenses. You need Trade Bank. When you join Trade Bank, you'll get the benefit of free advertising in our monthly magazine, tradebank.com, emails, and mailouts. Join Trade Bank now and receive your Trade Bank debit card with trade credits to spend any way you want. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call now for a free consultation. 877-2202. That's 877-2202. Trade Bank of Chattanooga.
Chattanooga Paint and Decorating would like to remind you it's so hot out there. And guess what? Your deck is taking a beating. It's probably starting to show wear. If you're hosting friends, get your deck entertainment ready with a fresh coat of stain and protect it from heat, sun, and rain with a quality sealant. If you want to get to work, Chattanooga Paint and Decorating want to help you. For exterior paint, stains, sealants, and supplies, stop by Chattanooga Paint and Decorating today on Hicks and Pike across from Valvoline or online at ChattanoogaPaint.com.
Nuga Radio.
Are you brain dead? Still voting for pathetic liberals? Take 3 hours of Sean Hannity from 3 to 6.
Nuga Radio.
Then call us in the morning between 9 and 11.
92.7
Nuga Radio.
You're listening to all new Nuga Radio and NugaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. The show's brought to you Keon Road. Thank you for joining me today. So, Blake Bortles, is he worth it? The Jacksonville Jaguars committed to Blake Bortles at the end of last season to a long-term deal. A lot of people believe that this is possibly an overpaying of Blake. Blake, by the way, won a playoff game, but spent half of the season being ridiculed for being a bad quarterback, and rightfully so. He was. Blake Bortles wasn't just kind of bad. For half a football season, Blake Bortles was really bad. Now, Blake Bortles is combined with a defense that's the best in the league, if not a top-tier defense, right? Like, if you talked about the top defenses in the league, you'd have to put the Jacksonville Jaguars defense up there. The Jaguars would be up there. The Vikings would be up there because Mike Zimmer can coach the hell out of a defense, and he makes something that is completely just suffocating and stifling. And I believe that the Denver Broncos have a very underrated defense. They did miss Von Miller for some games last year, and that's the reason why I think that they suffered and struggled a little bit. But that's a top-notch defense also. But you mentioned the Jaguars defense because they carry the team. When you look at what these teams do, what these teams are about, these teams are constructed so that the defense trumps everything else. And if you were going to move on from Blake Bortles, you would be moving on from Blake Bortles to a guy you would have to potentially pay boatloads of money. The financial commitment that the Jacksonville Jaguars made to Blake Bortles makes perfect sense, given that Blake Bortles is a game manager. They are paying Blake Bortles not to ruin the game. He can go out there and win it if he's got the chops to on a given day. But they're paying him not to go out there and ruin it. Now, it proved not to be enough against the Patriots last season. Blake Bortles versus Tom Brady, and he wound up being ultimately outplayed by Brady. Though for one half of football, Bortles was actually the better quarterback at the end of the first half. I just don't think that there's one way to win at football. I think we continuously make this mistake when we say you have the franchise quarterback, and if you don't have a franchise quarterback, you've got no chance. There are multiple different positions on a football field that matter. I mean, we talk about the player on the field responsible for the most wins, the player responsible for the highest amount of win shares, as the stat goes. And I think that it's obvious that it's the quarterback position. Quarterbacks are worth multiple wins over the course of a season. J.J. Watt, for as prolific as he is, J.J. Watt in his prime was worth 1.5 to 2 wins. This is according to advanced statistics, but it makes sense. The guy with the ball in his hands all the time is going to control the tempo, the pace of the game, and whether or not you actually can win long term. That's all under that person's control. So I personally, it makes sense to me. But at the same time,
What is the next most important position after quarterback? Well, it's pass rusher. If the quarterback is the most important, then the guy that takes out the quarterback, he's the second most important. And what's the most important after that guy? Well, that'd be a lockdown corner. If you can take away a quarterback's targets, if you can make his offensive line irrelevant, you can erase almost any great quarterback. There are a handful of guys you can't. It's difficult to get this. I mean, you could have as great a defense as anybody, but it's hard to hold down Tom Brady for a full 4 quarters of a football game. It's hard to hold down Aaron Rodgers for a full 4 quarters of a football game. But most guys in this league, if you build an elite level defense, you can beat just about anyone in this league. And that's the route that the Jaguars are going. And to be honest with you, it's an easier route. You never know who's going to be a bust and who's going to work out. And it's anybody's guess who ultimately pans out. Where I think things get to be semi-ludicrous, where I think things get to be a little bit ridiculous, is where we are suggesting that somehow everybody should just keep drafting a quarterback and drafting a quarterback and drafting a quarterback. It's easier to figure out if defensive guys are going to pan out than a quarterback. Quarterbacks are about as hit and miss as anything else. And you know that the crazy thing about swinging at a quarterback constantly is this. You can swing at a quarterback and miss, and everybody acts like you should never have drafted that guy, that you should have known that guy would stink. Why didn't you know? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers take Jameis Winston. Jameis hasn't been very accurate as a quarterback in the NFL, and Jameis has brought along with him all the baggage that we thought he might bring along with him. But Jameis, when he came out, was the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. You know, I mean, Andrew Luck had a very high rating coming out of college, and Jameis Winston was right there. Also had a very high rating, and obviously he played fantastically in college. Then I think that, like, the risk of taking Jameis Winston, it wasn't so obvious now that maybe the Buccaneers should have tried something else. I mean, he's still on the roster. He's still playing for them. And if he can avoid legal troubles, like potentially damaging legal troubles, he's still more of an asset than he is ultimately a loss. So I don't know that drafting a quarterback is the best way to go if you can build a defense instead. Building a defense takes longer, but it's less risky. It's a safer thing to do, right? It's like trying to borrow lots of money, but with a high interest rate, or you borrow a little bit of money and a low interest rate. But that's the quarterback defense problem. It takes longer to build a good defense. There's more mouths to feed. You've got to pay a lot more guys. But if you build an elite defense, you get to be a contender. The Jacksonville Jaguars are something that none of the other teams in the AFC South can say about themselves. They're a contender. The Titans are not a contender. We hope they will be. They're building. They're growing. Maybe they'll get there. The Colts are not a contender. If Andrew Luck is 100%, he's not gun shy. He's throwing the ball at the velocity that he's always thrown it as. He's the Andrew Luck that we remember before he got injured. They're a contender. But I have to see that first before I just hand that to them. And the Houston Texans, for as good as they are with Deshaun Watson, again, it's more health stuff. Can Deshaun Watson finish an entire season as an NFL quarterback playing the way that he plays? He's going to get dinged. He's going to take a lot of shots. And honestly, the sample size on Deshaun Watson is incredibly small. I'm not ready to crown the Houston Texans contender. And while I think that the AFC South might just be the best division in football, the Jaguars are the only team in that entire division that is actually able to say, we are contenders. We are Super Bowl contenders. They were one bad quarter away from beating Tom Brady and the Patriots and themselves going to a Super Bowl. And they had Blake Bortles. And I think that there's a lot of jokes that you can make about Blake Bortles because, again, he does it to himself. Blake Bortles can give you some of the most embarrassing numbers, quarterback passer ratings that look like a toddler was playing quarterback instead of a grown man. Like you can see it, but I think ultimately the design of that team is this. We're going to build a defense that will suffocate everybody, and then we will pay our quarterback long-term to not lose the game. And every now and then, Blake Bortles does something absolutely surprising, and he'll go out and win it for you. But he's done his job. Blake Bortles has been an average quarterback, and honestly, that's exactly what he gets paid to do. And because you can pay Blake Bortles to be an average quarterback, you can pay your defense on the high end. How do I know that you can't do both? Why can't you have a great offense and a great defense? Why can't you have a great quarterback and a great defense? Well, you can if your quarterback is on his rookie deal. Bortles is not on his rookie deal. And if you try and go out there and draft another quarterback and the kid can't play, everybody's going to treat you like you should have known that kid couldn't play. Bird in hand, worth two in the bush. I would roll with Bortles. You know what he's capable of, and build a defense that can manage that. It's perfect. You look at the Seattle Seahawks. When they had the Legion of Boom, they also had Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is one of the best quarterbacks in the entire NFL. He is amazing. He is accurate. He is mobile. He's a playmaker. But when they had him on his rookie deal, they were able to pay that defense. The moment that they couldn't pay the moment that they had to pay Wilson, they couldn't pay the defense anymore. The Legion of Boom dies. And are the Seahawks better now than in 2012? I don't think that they are. The Seahawks were a better football team in 2012 than they are now, even though now they have the franchise quarterback and they've paid him. Russell Wilson was the franchise quarterback then, but they didn't have to pay him yet. This is the same thing that's going on with the Rams. The Rams are trying to figure out how not to pay Aaron Donald too much money. Why? Because they got to pay Jared Goff eventually. The Rams have got to make a push. This is why they went out and got Ndamukong Suh. I mean, the Rams have got to make a push to try and win a Super Bowl because you've got to get this done before it's time to pay the piper, time to pay your franchise quarterback. Once you pay that guy, you are doubling and maybe even tripling down on offense. What you're saying is defense is not the most important thing to me. You're not going to get any top flight pass rushers and cover corners and lights out safeties. You're not going to get those guys cheap enough to also pay a franchise quarterback the going rate of a franchise quarterback. You're just not. And that's what's interesting about the Vikings and Kirk Cousins, is they've given Kirk Cousins license to do whatever. And I'm actually going to transition here and talk about Stephon Diggs and his extension, because I think that Stephon Diggs is now the latest example of what makes and what is the going rate of an NFL wide receiver. You're listening to All New Nuga Radio, NugaRadio.com, here on 92.7 FM. The show is Clutch with Keon Rose. I'm Keon Rose. By the way, if you somehow didn't catch that, thanks for joining me today. Olive Branch. It's a fantastic restaurant. It's on Ringgold Road, and they have fantastic specials throughout the week. Olive Branch is a Mediterranean deli, and their food, if I might say so, is glorious. On Wednesday, they have a number of delightful specials, including chicken marsala, sausage, pepper, and onions, Greek lemon chicken, and for vegans, lentil stew. My personal favorite is the spaghetti and meatballs, in which I will be partaking in sometime this week. I'll try and stop by tomorrow because obviously specials are fantastic. That is Olive Branch Mediterranean Deli. If you like Greek food, no reason to travel all the way around the globe to try and find yourself in Greece for the best authentic in Greek food when you can simply stay in Chattanooga, drive over to Ringgold Road, and take some home yourself. That is Olive Branch Mediterranean Deli. The Vikings have paid Stephon Diggs. Their commitment to Kirk Cousins is, we're giving you $75 million guaranteed. We're giving you the keys to the franchise, and we are giving you Stephon Diggs, who is the best receiving weapon that they've got. They also have Adam Thielen, who breakout season, was not drafted. Somehow they discovered him. How is it possible that Adam Thielen slipped through the cracks is anybody's guess. I don't even know. Just we know that the evaluation process in the NFL, it's not perfect. You get most of these guys, but sometimes a guy or two slips through the cracks. Adam Thielen is one such guy. So Kirk Cousins has got the weapons there. But Stephon Diggs has been extended for $14 million. He's getting paid $14 million a year. And that is apparently the going rate of a top-flight wide receiver. And I think that that is kind of insane when you consider the quarterbacks that are able to win in this league without one. I think you got to have one if your quarterback is Matt Ryan. I think if you're the Falcons, I think you pay Julio Jones because your quarterback is Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is a very good quarterback. Matt Ryan is not elite. Matt Ryan is not the best quarterback in the NFL. You don't need to pay that kind of money if your quarterback is Aaron Rodgers. I think what you need to give Aaron Rodgers is a defense. You don't need to pay that kind of money if your quarterback is Tom Brady, and you're hoping if you're the San Francisco 49ers that Garoppolo turns out to be that kind of guy too. Kirk Cousins is a solid quarterback. He's like, to me, he's in that Matt Ryan range. He's very, very good. He's not great. He's not game-changing. I was going on just now about Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson is accurate playmaker. He takes the game and extends plays and puts that team on another level. Kirk Cousins doesn't do that. So you've got to go ahead and lock up his receiver, his best receiver long-term, Stephon Diggs. And Stephon Diggs I like a lot. He's got great hands. He's got incredible speed. I thought $14 million a year is too high for Stephon Diggs. But honestly, that tells you that $14 million a year is the going rate for a wide receiver, which makes me think of Julio Jones. Julio, who's finally making close to $14 million this year, thanks to some financial finagling by the front office of the Atlanta Falcons, still have to deal with the fact that Julio is going to be worth that much next year and the year after that. This guy's still in his prime, and not on the backside of his prime either. He does get injured a decent amount, but he's not on the backside of his prime. He is still very much in the middle of his prime, and you're going to have to contend with the fact that if Julio Jones ever became a free agent, if you don't pay him more than $14 million a year, more, because $14 million is what we're asking for here for guys who are top flight receivers, you lose him. And I know that the Falcons drafted Calvin Ridley from Alabama. I like Calvin Ridley. I think Calvin Ridley is an amazing football player. He was my favorite wide receiver entering the NFL draft. But Calvin Ridley is not Julio Jones. Julio Jones is an actual monster of a man. I don't know if you've seen Julio Jones standing next to mere mortals, but Julio Jones steps into a room and you just get the sense of, whoa, where did they make that guy? What factory pumped out this Terminator? He's huge. Calvin Ridley's skinnier. He's got a smaller frame. He's more of a speed receiver. And I think he's going to complement Julio very well this upcoming season. But you can't not pay Julio Jones what it is that a receiver is worth. Julio Jones cannot be in this league making less money than Sammy Watkins. And I know part of that is what the Bills did. The Bills decided they were going to pay Sammy Watkins way too much money before they realized that Sammy Watkins was Sammy Watkins. He's good. He was good in college. He hasn't really been great in the NFL. And he's just going to be slightly above average, and that's just what he is. I think that they jumped the gun on that one, and then he's been bouncing around the league ever since, and he's going to keep all the money that he's been paid, obviously. Mike Evans makes more money than Julio Jones. And now Stephon Diggs gets to join the club of guys that will be consistently over the next 2 to 3 seasons making more money than Julio Jones that are not better than Julio Jones. There's only one player in the league better than Julio Jones. His name is Antonio Brown. This is, to me, the most confusing thing. Antonio Brown is the best wide receiver in the league. Julio Jones is the second best wide receiver in the league. How is this humanly possible? How is this humanly possible that somehow Julio Jones is not being paid? When I look at the Stephon Diggs contract, that is the only thing that I can think of. Right? There are 2 guys in this league right now that aren't getting paid what I think they deserve, and Julio is in training camp, so the Falcons aren't going to have to worry about this until the end of the season. But Aaron Donald is still holding out. And I think he should hold out. Aaron Donald is the best pass rusher in football. He doesn't get hurt. He's healthy all the time. He's big, he's strong, he's fast. You can line him up anywhere on the defensive line. His sack numbers are ridiculous. How is it possible that the Rams have not paid Aaron Donald, especially when you look at everybody else on that team who has been paid? Todd Gurley got paid. Well, okay. Todd Gurley is about half of your offense, maybe even more. He's certainly almost half of the yards after the catch that you get. He's a transcendent running back talent. He can catch. He can run between the tackles. Todd Gurley can do everything in this league, right? Like, I put him and Le'Veon Bell above everybody else. What I do not understand, and what makes little to no sense to me whatsoever, is how it is that Brandon Cooks got paid, how it is you were able to shell out the money for Ndamukong Suh before you paid Aaron Donald. And Aaron Donald is asking for a lot of money. Right? Like, he turned down a $21 million offer. He's looking for $24 million and above. But he's the best pass rusher in the game. So of course he is worth $24 million and above. That's his actual value on the open market. Like, if you made Aaron Donald a free agent right now and said for $24 million, anybody in the league could take Aaron Donald, half the league would be forking over the money right away. I mean, it's insane. Listening to all new Nuga Radio and NugaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Thanks for joining me today. You know that I appreciate you. Make sure to check out those specials at Olive Branch Mediterranean Deli. And remember, folks, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch, and I'll see you in 23 hours.
David Toulis. I made the move. 1 o'clock every weekday afternoon, 1 till 3, Nuga Radio.
92.7. 3, 2, 1.